This next video will talk to you about understitching, and this sample shows you the completed sample, and we've labeled it so that you can see there's one side that's the garment side where you see no stitching, and then there's the facing side that faces the body. The understitching will be on the facing side, and understitching is a great technique that helps an edge seam roll naturally to the inside so that we don't see any of that inside fabric. It's an underused technique, but it's one that is a valuable technique to learn. To get set up, you will need to have one of your plain seam samples that have been backstitched at both ends. Originally it had 5/8, and then you want to remember the technique that you learned with your grading technique. We want to grade the seam allowance so that it is not as thick, and we want the widest one to be on the whorl side. Okay. Now we're going to label the outer pieces of fabric because we want to understand why we are understitching on the underside. So on one of them you will write garment side, that's the whorl side, that's the outer side. And then on the other one you'll write facing side, that faces the body. We could also call this upper collar and under collar if we were doing this for a collar. Now, we want to grade our seam allowance. You've already learned about eliminating bulk, and so we would trim this down, but trim it unevenly. So on the facing side, you can trim it down less than 1/4 inch. And then on the garment side, it's the wider one, and it will be about 1/4 inch. Okay? Now, when we get ready to understitch, we need to have the seam pressed to the underside or the facing side. So press both seam allowances to that facing side. And now when we get ready to stitch, we're going to be between 1/16 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch away from our seam line, but on the facing side. So just position it under your presser foot. And I like to put the seam line in this upper left-hand inside corner. And then I'll move my needle to the left and just position it where I like it. Not too close to the seam, but not far away either. So I'm just going to have my needle one to the left. You could go ahead and backstitch if you want. I'm training my eye in this upper left-hand corner. That will help you be very accurate as you stitch along here. And then backstitch at the opposite end. That is called understitching.